Hello friends, how are you? I'm Ari Thurger, and today I'm going to talk about the Serpent of Paganism, the true pagan temple, the manifestation of the life force that animates all things in our world, that our ancestors were well aware of and praised such a life force wherever it could be found. And I hope you enjoy this video. Our ancestors were well aware that the world is pulsing with life, and such life was fed by something greater than ourselves. A life force residing all over the cosmos and extending its life-giving power and animating all things. Our Scandinavian ancestors called this life force Ond, the breath. The Greeks called it Hither, the Primordial Deity. Quite possibly the first notion of divinity the Greeks started to venerate. It was the breath of the world, not the air we breathe, but the air surrounding our world, the energy which is the very breath of the divine, the energy residing in that breath. It is a web of electromagnetic energy in which we live in, and it gives life and power to all living things that it comes in contact with. Hither is what the Inuit call Sila, the breath of the world, the wind itself, the primary component of everything that exists. It is the breath of life coming from the deity of the same name that gives life to every creature on earth. Thus, every living creature contains this energy. It is the thinnest aspect of air that animates the body. Sila is the spirit of the air, of the world, of the winds. The Polynesians call it mana. It is power. It resides in all things. It is a sacred spiritual quality coming from supernatural forces without which there would be no life. Every living thing possesses mana. The Scandinavians called it Hond, the breath, the wind, the very thing that Odin, as a god of air and weather, gave to Osk and Hembla, the physical existence of what would become humans. Without this breath, without Ond, the body would not live and everything would simply have physical existence, just objects, just the husk. But Odin gave Ond to objects, to matter, and so he gave them life, gave them the very essence of life, the spirit that animates the body, or the spirit that animates the matter. This Ond is the very power residing in song. It is the divine spark that exists in all of us, and through our breath, through song and the manifestation of our voice, we unleash this Ond that is capable of creating more life and manifesting power. We manifest this divine spark when we unleash this breath. This Hond, Sila, Hither, mana is what gives life to anything. It is a flowing energy slithering its way into our world and running within everything, creating a web of life that empowers the world and all the creatures living in it. And this life force creates what the ancient Scandinavians called Magin, the essence of a living entity. Each one of us has this Magin, this essence which was created by the Hond, the breath of life, and it gives us strength, energy, might and power, which is called Magin. Hond is the spirit that animates matter, what we would call soul, consciousness. And when the spirit resides in matter, that matter becomes a living entity, and that living entity will produce Magin, which is power, which is all the life forces that create the very energy of a living entity, which was first animated by the Hond, by the life-giving breath of the cosmos. This life force resides in everything and flows within the world itself. And where this life force could be found, our ancestors made their temples and consecrated to the divine powers. This life force is the divine spark in our world, which sometimes manifests itself on a particular piece of land, a mountain, a grove, a tree, a waterfall, a specific area where this power was concentrated, and our ancestors made their temples or sacred grounds on that area. This life force was the first manifestation of divine powers our ancestors venerated. This breath of life, the breath of the cosmos itself, was their first deity. These areas that contain natural power are the earthly veins, the webs of Hond and Pagan that flow throughout the cosmos. And this life force is the living entity of the cosmos, which creates life with its breath, with its flowing power, and it creates worlds. And such a force resides in the very core of our planet. And that burning core that contains the very essence of life, which is the making of the earth itself, is the generator of this force and unleashes it upon all living things, creating a web of life. And this life force that slithers within and without, our ancestors called it a serpent, because its energy that spreads and slithers throughout the earth, all around, forming a web. The serpent biting its own tail, which is the symbol of the eternity of the life cycle of all things. The continuous network of energy that feeds the world. The life force is the serpent or the dragon. But the figure of the dragon is, well, in its primordial understandings, was nothing more than a winged serpent, which is the personification of this life force throughout the cosmos, outside the earthly realms. Our ancestors tried to explain what they perceived as divine manifestations, well, by comparing such manifestations with things they knew of this world that resembled such manifestations. Our ancestors were far more sensitive to the natural world than we are nowadays, and they sensed this energy of the earth that flows like invisible rivers, a web of energy. They compared it with the serpent, which is also an underground creature that quickly moves on an undulating manner, just like the energy emanating from the burning core of our planet, coming from its very depths, from the underground, just like the serpent. The serpent or the dragon was seen as the embodiment of this energy, transmitting this life force to the earth. Most myths of creation start with a cosmic serpent. The serpent and the egg, which I will develop on another video, but I'm certain you are quite familiar with it. The egg being our very world from which life hatches, and the serpent envelops the egg, protecting it, which is the symbol of the life force around the world. The world serpent, the cosmic serpent, a symbol of protection, the force, the energy, the essence of life. For a millennia, the serpent was seen as the symbol of power, knowledge, primordial wisdom, protection. The serpent was the symbol of the living earth and its invisible energy that affects everything. The serpent that bites its own tail, which symbolizes the eternity in the spiritual plane and the earth in the physical plane. The serpent is the life force of the earth, the so-called ley lines, which our ancestors sensed and made use of them and have built their places of cult in the areas where this life force had a stronger manifestation. The places where this life force came through, erupting from the ground like a serpent and spreading its energy. With the arrival of Christianity and such monotheisms, started a war between the old serpent deity and the new god. Our ancestors venerated the serpent, the life force of the earth, the energy of the cosmos, the divine spark that flows through the cosmos and manifests itself in all living things. The old faith, the cult of the serpent, the true symbol of paganism, was attacked. And by attacking this ancestral force, the spirit of the earth and nature itself was also attacked. When we see Christian figures, heroes, martyrs, even when we see old pagan gods fighting the serpent, killing the serpent, or in some manner dominating the serpent, make no mistake, because even in pagan motifs, that is a Christian representation. The tale of dragon slayers, of serpent slayers, are Christian motifs of the fight against the spirit of paganism, the spirit of the earth itself. Christianity conquering paganism, killing the serpent, stepping on the serpent, crushing it. The pagans would never create such motifs. So, for instance, a true Nordic pagan would never praise the figure of Thor fighting and killing the great world serpent Jormungandr. Make no mistake, that is a Christian motif to help the pagans interiorizing that the very symbol of their faith was even conquered by one of the gods they loved dearly, and that the serpent of protection, wisdom, of life itself was a bad symbol, and even their old gods despised that symbol, and such a symbol should be forgotten. The very spirit of paganism should be forgotten. Do not praise the symbol of the old gods fighting the serpent or killing the serpent or the dragon, because that is a contradiction. That is an assault to the very spirit of paganism. The cross of Christianity is the sword that kills the serpent of paganism. The cross is the sword that penetrates the earth itself, and the decapitation of the serpent or the dragon is the death of paganism and the earth itself, because pagans cared about the world they lived in, but their most sacred symbol died, and there was an abandonment of the old ways, an abandonment of the love and respect we had for all living things, for nature and the earth itself, and slowly we turned our backs to the natural world and we let it die. The temples, the churches of the new faith were built on top of the old cult places, where the energy of the earth was stronger. The churches were built on top of the entrances from which the serpent came through and spread its power, giving beneficial energy to all living creatures. But the energy is still there. It is not dead yet, and we know it. We feel it. The serpent of paganism still lives, and no matter how many times they turned the old gods against the spirit of paganism, and no matter how many times they try to close the holes in the ground with churches, the serpent will always find a way out. The ley lines, the energy lines, or even the dragon lines, and the points in which such energy is stronger, which are called force fields, are the places where magic is stronger, and pagans still understand such magic, such energy. It's still present in our lives. As sensitive beings, we feel it, we can almost see it. And for those not sensitive enough yet, you can always follow the old cult places, which aren't placed at random, but are all built in accordance with the dragon lines, the energy lines, the web of life, if you want to call it, the primordial serpent of life. The old cult places were meant to contain this life force, this energy of the earth, and manifest it so it would influence all those who visited these places. The old cult places are meant to provoke a reaction on these ley lines, this great serpent of energy, and pull it out to provoke a reaction in ourselves. for our own benefit. So I do suggest that one of these days you sit on one of the old cold places of your choosing, be there, relax and listen, and you will see it creates very powerful results. Look for the old graves, the dolmens, the burial mounds in the configuration of a ship. Seek out the menhirs or standing stones, stone rings, labyrinths, the ruins of the ancient temples, and you will understand what words can hardly describe. But such cult places were also built to mark the places where the energy is stronger, or rather, where the life force of the earth can be felt more profoundly. Just markers, so generations would not forget these places of power, lest we lose our sensitivity, which is exactly what happened. With the coming of the new religions, which forcibly created a strong detachment from the natural world, we lost our sensitivity. But in all truth, we do not need temples. Pagans do not need any construction to venerate the embodiments of the divine and the spark of divinity. The true pagan temple is everywhere, wherever we feel this energy more active. Our gods, our ancestors, spirits of the land are always with us, and we transport them wherever we go to find such spots where the serpent of paganism comes out and gifts us with its primordial wisdom. Alright, my dear friends, I hope you have enjoyed this video, and what you see behind me, it's a menhir, obviously a standing stone. It's the tallest in all the Iberian Peninsula and on the top 3 of the tallest standing stones in all of Europe, almost 8 meters tall. Quite a beauty. Thank you so much for watching. See you on the next video, and as always, tack för idag.